Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Mr. Burden, and I am in the Week 7 folder for Personal Financial Planning class. And I'm creating this video because I know from previous experience, just teaching this assignment in the past, that students have struggled a little bit just trying to follow the directions. I know there's a lot here. We refer to a lot of different documents and links. So for all my visual learners out there, I thought that I would go ahead and talk through this, show some examples, and just kind of give you a little bit of a more of a visual demonstration here. So here we go. So you're going to help Ron Zeismer learn how to reconcile his checking account. Excuse me, sorry, I have a little bit of a cold today. Reconciling a checking account lets a person know exactly how much she has in his or her checking account at all times. This includes checks written by the person that haven't been cashed or transactions that are currently still in the process, thus not showing up on the bank statement. For more information on what this means, read this short article before moving any further. A lot of you probably, haven't balanced a checkbook before or reconciled a checkbook, same thing. It's a very short article here. This will give you a little bit of a background. I think it'll help set you up for success on this assessment. One thing I want to point out real quickly here, and the whole purpose of balancing your checking account is because not all checks written automatically are going to show up on your bank statement or maybe in your account live if you log in on a website to check it. So for instance, this past weekend I went to a Marquette game. And let's say I write a check to my father-in-law, but he doesn't cash it for a couple weeks. Well, what happens is my bank doesn't get notified when I write a check and give it to someone. The only time my bank knows something happens that I wrote a check is when that other person cashes the check on their end. So in this case, let's say my father-in-law waits 3 weeks to cash it, and let's say the ticket was, let's say it was $100, okay? So now what would happen is, in the meantime, if I logged into my account, or if the month ended and my bank sent me a bank statement and I looked at that, I might not notice that the $100 isn't on there, just because you write multiple checks in a month, and it'd be real easy to forget about one that you wrote. And so I would think I would have $100 more than I actually really have. So and this can happen a lot. It doesn't have to be with a check written. It can be, for instance, maybe even if you were paying for something electronically. Well, sometimes that can take days, or even a week or more for the transaction to actually go through. But it could be the other way too. It could be deposits. If something was supposed to be deposited into your account, but it takes a couple days to go ahead and process, that might not show up live. So essentially what you want to do is you want to have a check register or a check ledger where you are keeping track of all these things, so you're not going to miss stuff like that. So, okay, I'm going to keep going. So you are going to record all of the checking account transactions Ron had for 2 months using the directions and information on this Google Doc. I highly recommend printing this out. Record all of Ron's checking transactions for November and December in his checking account register or ledger. Same thing by clicking here. I recorded the first few transactions for you to give you some examples. So let's go ahead and jump into this. So right here, this is, so it gives you a little background on Ron here, and essentially what we're looking at is anything that Ron did for the month of November that impacted his checking account in some sort of way is listed right here. We have the date and then essentially what it was that happened. So you're going to record all of these in the check register or ledger, and then all the things that he did for December as well. So you're going to record all of that in his check register or ledger. So let's go ahead and open that. So first thing that you're going to want to do is to go ahead and make a copy of this. Go File and then make a copy, because you don't have editing permission. But once you make a copy, it's your copy, so now you can go ahead and edit it. And then I just ask that you move it into your personal financial planning folder that we created in week 1 for the course, because then I have the proper share settings that I need to evaluate you. So one thing that I do want to point out here is this first column, the check number one. It's essentially called check number because you know, checking accounts have been around a long time, and one of the most popular ways that they're going to be impacted is if you write a check to someone. So for instance, an example I just gave for the Marquette ticket, that individual check that I wrote to my father-in-law for the Marquette ticket is going to have a specific number on it. Maybe it's like 101 or 102, 103, etc. And essentially, so you want to go ahead on your end, and if you wrote a check, you would write it right there. It's good for you to have a specific number. You know, if you ever have you know, you need to look into something a little further, or talk to the bank about something, you know, you can be like, oh, it's check 102 or check 103 or whatever it is. It identifies that specific check. But especially as we have evolved over time, there's a lot of other things that, a lot of other transactions that you can do that, that are going to impact your checking account that don't involve writing an actual check. So some of the popular ones right here. So if you make a deposit, put a D in the check number. If you take cash out of an ATM, so for instance, I can think about like a week and a half ago, I stopped at a Quick Trip, and I stopped there because A, it's near my house, and the ATM there does not charge me a fee for taking out the cash. So I used my debit card. Said I wanted to take out, let's say, $150. Put my debit card in the machine, gave me $150 cash. Well, I would want to record that in my register, so I know my updated balance. And then the EFT is electronic funds transfer. So sometimes you're going to transfer funds electronically. For instance, like my wife and I, we pay like a lot of our you know, bills through an electronics funds transfer. So we have it set up where you know, for We Energies, for paying our energy bill, rather than us having to remember to write out a check, you know, on a certain date, it automatically comes out of our account. You'll see that Ron here does this. He has it set up where, and this is a real smart move that I would recommend you do in real life, is he has, I think it's $200 on a certain date every single month that where $200 gets moved from his checking into his savings, and that helps him. In this case, it's saving up for a down payment on a car, I can see in the transactions. But people do that to like save up for vacations and different things along those lines, and they don't touch that savings account except for, you know, whatever purpose you're saving it for. And then DC stands for debit card use. So more and more now, when people are out and about, like at stores and things along those lines, I don't see people write as many checks. For instance, like I remember, you know, growing up as a kid, we'd go through the grocery line and my dad would take out his checkbook and he would write a check to, you know, Pick and Save, and that's how they would pay. Now, typically, because of debit cards, I would say they're a little bit more popular. Debit cards have essentially they serve the same purpose as a check, and people use them because it's a little bit more convenient to, you know, carry around just this thin card versus like your checkbook and write out a check, and it's a lot faster just to scan it, enter your PIN, which protects you in case you lose it, and then pay for it that way. But that money, that's what's interesting, that's what's nice about a debit card is, you know, it comes right out of your checking account. So if I scan my debit card, my groceries were, you know, $75.12, you know, Pick and Save is going to be paid $75.12. My checking account is going to go down by that much, and things along those lines. So, all right, let's get back to this now. So let's look at a couple of the transactions. So you're going to start with the first one, and I already did that for you because I wanted to give you some examples. So on November 6th, we opened up a new checking account by depositing $1,000 cash. So I would go in here, check number, it wasn't a check, it was a deposit, so I put a D there, put the date, and then you write for the description. This is really a note to yourself. You want to be able to look into your own check register, and you want to remember what you paid. So, oh, this was a deposit that I made to initially open up my checking account. If this was if it was money, if it was bringing down the balance of your checking account, or a debit, or you can see I have the minus sign right there, you'd list it right here. But it wasn't in this case, it was a deposit. Oop, I gotta get rid of that. Sorry about that. I'll talk more about the X's there later. And then since we're depositing, our balance is going to go up with this transaction. That's considered a credit to our account, so it's plus, it's 1,000. So, and then you put your updated balance right here, and since it started at 0 and it just went up to 1,000, you write it right there. Now what we're going to say is we would go to our next one, 11.8. Use debit card at Mickey's Grocery for $75.12. So I go DC for debit card, put the date, then I put the note for myself, what I bought, but this time it was actually debit, which means our checking account went down with that transactions. Then I go $1,000 minus 75.12 equals this updated balance right here, and then you do the same thing for this one and this one, and you do that all the way down. Just a couple things to watch out for is make sure you put it in the correct column. It's very easy to put things in things that are supposed to bring down the balance and put them in the credit one, or vice versa. So be careful. And then just also when you're doing your math, just be really careful too that you go 924 minus 550, and that you enter it in right into your calculator, so your balance is good. And that's something that you would want to do in real life with a real checkbook register, because if you miscalculate something, what you think you have in your account could be way off. All right, let's go to the next part, which is, so you're going to do that. You're going to record all the ones for November and December, okay, right on this sheet. Then when you're done, you're going to go to this next part. Once you've entered the transactions, what we just did, into the register on the spreadsheet, you will need to complete the reconciliation process, or the balancing process. Notice the bottom of the spreadsheet has a register tab and a reconciliation tab for each month that you need to complete. You will use Ron's bank statements, which I highly recommend printing out, and what you entered in the register tab to complete November and December reconciliation. So if you look here, we have a register here. And then on here we have our, oops, I was actually making a key, and I had some there. You saw a few answers to get you started here. But essentially what you're going to do is you're going to open up the bank account, okay? And like I said, on the bank statement, so essentially if you have a checking account, you get a bank statement every single month. Sometimes it's paper, sometimes it's electronic, but it looks something like this. It essentially has, your beginning balance and your ending balance, and then it has like any activity that the bank recognized. And remember, most things are going to show up on there, but there could be the case where, like I gave an example of, where I write a check to someone but they don't cash it. Well, the bank's not going to know that, so it's not going to show up on my account, which is why you want to balance your checking account, because especially if it's a big payment, you could be off by quite a bit with how much you think you have in your account. So essentially these on the left here are going to be any anything that the bank recognized where your any debit or it went down, and then on the right over here it's going to be any deposit. So this is just for November. So what you're going to do here is I entered this one for you. If you look at the bank statement, the bank statement, record this ending balance right here. I did not do this for December, but I did it for November. $2,352.95. Enter that right here. Then you're going to do any outstanding deposits. Here's how you figure out if something is outstanding. You're going to go through and you're going to, this register is going to be full right here. It's going to have all the transactions. Then anything that shows up on your bank statement. So for instance, I don't have that because I didn't complete the register in full, because I'm not going to complete this whole assignment for you in this video. But I do know that, for instance, the 7512 transaction, okay, We did that, so that's right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put an X right there. That means that that transaction, so I write that in my ledger, that means it showed up on my bank statement. Okay, that means it went through, it's good, the bank recognized it. Then I would go in here and I would do the $550 one. There we go. And you do the same thing for deposits. Well, so my initial deposit did show up there, so this is right here. So you go through, and most of these things are going to have X's, but there are going to be some things that do not. So what you're going to do then is you're going to go to reconcile your account. Anything through the end of November, through the 30th of November, anything outstanding, meaning that it did not show up in your bank statement, it does not have an X right here. If it's a deposit, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and enter that number in right here, and then you're going to give yourself a new total. So let's say this was, there was a $100 deposit that didn't show up. We'll then go $2,352.95 plus 100, and that's your new subtotal. And then you do the same thing for any debits or any payments. So anything, if you go back to your register here, any debit, anything that brought down your account but doesn't have an X yet, you would record those individually right here. Like let's say there's a $20 payment, and a 30, and let's just say that's it. There is more. What you would do then is for your adjusted balance, you would take this $2,452.95 minus 20 minus 30, and then you get your adjusted score. What you want to happen is once you get this adjusted balance, okay, this adjusted balance, since we're doing it through November 30th, excuse me, if you go back to your register and you would find the November 30th date, or at least the last November transaction, your checkbook is balanced if this balance that'll be over here is equal to exactly what's over here. That's what you want, and if it is, you would put yes, and that means you balance your checkbook, and that's what you want to do. That means you've accounted for, and you know where where every payment is, which ones are outstanding. Same with deposits, which ones went through with your bank, which is what you want. And then you're going to go ahead and do the same thing with December. And go through the December transactions and then go ahead and fill this out. So that's what you want. You want this score right here to for December, whatever the final one is in here for December, you want that updated balance to equal this right here. So and if you can successfully do this, you just rocked this assignment and you know how to balance your checkbook. So hopefully this video was helpful, and thanks for watching. Bye.